Welcome to Fireside Chats with Matt. And today I realized that Now in the 90s is no longer going. So Now in the 90s it is because you could still go back and watch the episodes, but it was a series by Pro Jared, the video game personality online. Pro Jared, see, the thing is, Pro Jared had some kind of like so-called cancellation or thing. He had something where it was actually one of those where it turned out that most people ended up seeming to say that he was in the right. It was like, I don't know, it was this girl I think Jared had like married, Jared was like married to someone, but he was cheating on someone, but somehow the girl who like he was cheating on, or the girl whom he cheated with, was angry at him, or it was one of like the seemingly more cumulonimbus kind of situations where it didn't even rain. It seemed like there was some kind of just cloud there, and you just kept going through it, and it was just nothing. Like it looked like a bigger cloud in the sky. There was a thing apparently where like Jared had like a dick pic. He sent one to some girl, and then that of course got online, and so people were like arguing whether Jared had a big penis or not, and like whatever. But in any case, he came back as Pro Jared, and he did some videos, but then he started doing videos on his channel, Pro Jared, called Now in the 90s. And it was a show, I guess it was him working together, by the end anyway, it was him working together with another writer, and then there was an editor who sort of said some stuff towards the end of each episode, whatever. But editor Dylan, writer David, I suppose, and then also writer Jared. And Jared was like the main guy. But it was called Now in the 90s. He like said, "Hi, I'm Jared," I think, essentially. Like it was him, but it was as if he was sort of rebranding. And it was like, oh, this is Now in the 90s. And it's me, Jared, but I'm not doing it under my brand Pro Jared, which has been sort of, tampered with and dick-picked and all this stuff. And instead, I'm just doing a show called Now in the 90s. And the thing was, the show was just about one of the most positive shows you could ever see. And it was similar enough in tone to Retrobird, another YouTuber who makes very positive video gaming stuff on YouTube. But the thing was, it was Now in the 90s. I think it might have started in based on this in the final episode that I just realized was it. I watched a little of it yesterday without realizing it was the last one. It came out yesterday, but in the final episode, the editor says in his part, he's like, one of the things he says there was like, well, are we gonna go back and cover all the games from like 1990 and 1991? I guess they started maybe sometime in 2021, but they were doing like 1991, or maybe they started in 2022 and they were doing 92. But Now in the 90s, it was whatever happened like this basic time period. They presented it as like today in 1994 for like a 2024 episode, but they also specifically said like it was, you don't always know what day a game came out on, so we're just kind of guessing with this based on like what came out in the month and stuff, or we're just kind of putting it together in the way that we would like to based on like the month these things came out. And it was just a really good show. They'd say like today is February 7th in 1994, and the games that came out this week, and then Jared would tell you about some games that came out. Often it would be like a game in a big series like Mega Man, and it's like, do you remember this game? For the final episode, it was Mega Man Soccer, and it was like, here's a game that nobody expected from Mega Man, and he'd talk about it, and then they'd have a section with editor Dylan sort of giving you some more games that came out that Jared didn't focus on towards the end. Often Dylan would be left with the sports titles, and I think Jared didn't like sports or sports games or whatever, but Dylan really didn't either. So it was just, you know, Dylan would sort of complain about having the sports titles, and it would be funny or whatever, but like it'd be part of the shtick. And yeah, it was just a really positive thing. Pro Jared, I always liked Pro Jared. He was very like upbeat. You know, I think I'd probably, I don't know if I'd like him as a person or not, but like he had a very upbeat, kind of happy console gamer, but like a little more, like a little, I'd say maybe a little more of a pressed kind of like, a little more of a structured kind of happy console gamer. Like he very much had like, I'm doing a TV show, like, you know, like it wasn't like Happy Console Gamer and other people, even like Never Knows Best, who does like video essays on video games and stuff. There's a sense of like, oh, this is like, you're really hearing what Never Knows Best thinks about this. But with Pro Jared, it was like, you know, here he is, he's the host of this show. You're not necessarily getting like, what does Jared really think about this? It's more like, he's telling you about this video game that came out, and he might tell you something about what people thought of it, or maybe what he thinks of it, but it's like he's putting on a performance. He's like, you know, Adam Sessler in X-Play, but even a little more just sort of like a host persona rather than a guy who's telling you what he really thinks. And it, you know, it's kind of nice. Like, of course, it's like, oh, Matt, you like how artificial it is? It's like, the presentation was just the little music they had, the color scheme, a lot of magenta for my truther / Quantum of Conscience fans, but a lot of magenta. There was the magenta going on. Magenta was like the main color scheme of this show, actually, so pink and magenta kind of thing, which ironically I think is more of an 80s color scheme, but I think he was sort of taking that like 80s kind of nostalgia but putting it for the 90s, which already does have its own nostalgia in itself. But anyway, it was just always so nice. He always, you know, it didn't seem like he was being super sincere all the time, but he was, you know, he put on a really positive persona. And I think a lot of like what is artificial these days is sort of artificial in a way where it's not even like positive anymore. If it is, it's like being positive but like saying horrible things in a positive way. But with Now in the 90s, it was really just like, I'm talking about video games that I might have played as a kid. Maybe you did too. This is what happened when times were better. You know, it's like, it's just generally like a nice, cheery presentation, and he's really not saying anything that like is political, or he's talking about the games generally. And I think he's probably kind of a lefty kind of guy, but, you know, who knows? I don't know. But there he is talking, and, you know, editor Dylan, his stuff got maybe a little more irritating over time, but like generally that was a fun part of the show too. And I think part of it might have just been like the sense I got of like Dylan's personality. It was a little grating on me, but like I don't want to, you know, I like the whole show, like, and I didn't watch it every week, like, you know, for months I would like not watch it, I think, but like, you know, I would return to it, and I watched it. I literally watched it before it had its own channel, and when Jared said like, hey, Now in the 90s is moving to its own channel, so we're gonna put this last couple episodes of the year on my Pro Jared channel, but please subscribe to the Now in the 90s channel, the official channel of the show Now in the 90s, which seemed to start more as like Pro Jared doing a show. Now it was like, no, this is its own show. It's not me. It's its own show. And it was really sad though. It was like, he was like, yep, this is the last episode. He's like, hey, yeah, we just, in like a comment on the official, like there was a secondary video, not that video, but another video from his channel saying like, this was Now in the 90s. I think that's what it was called or something. And it's really sad. And like some people in the comments, they were saying like, wow, like I didn't expect to, or I'd never had like a channel, I didn't expect to feel this way, or like I haven't felt this way before, but like this channel ending, it really fucking affects me. And it hit me like a really, really big fucking hit too. Like And the funny thing was, like, I wasn't even, like, that big of a fan of the, like, in terms of, like, following it a lot. Like, I didn't follow it, like, that consistently. For a while I did, but it was, like, just, I had seen enough of it where it was just, like, a huge, it was very sad. Like, it was actually, like, really sad. And the fact that it was so positively presented and just, like, genuine, like, just fun, like, smile. You know, Jared would be a little snarky. He'd make some jokes. It seemed like the last joke ever, or the last thing that he said in the last episode was kind of weirdly, like, maybe a double entendre, like, kind of sexual, which was sort of the perfect way to end it. I don't know if he intended that, or if I'm just sort of taking it from that without him having intended it. But it was like, it was sort of the perfect way, like, yeah, fuck you guys. Me and my dick pic online, like, this show didn't, I guess maybe it didn't make enough money for them to keep going with it. And I was looking, and it was like 30,000 views an episode, or like, you know, this episode recently got 39,000 views, this one got 25,000, whatever. And it was like, you know, like, there are a lot of channels with like 100,000 subscribers where they're not pulling in like 30 fucking thousand views in a video. But I guess it just wasn't enough, or maybe it was just the people there weren't invested enough, or maybe one or more of the guys had like something that kind of got in the way. But basically Jared's like, yeah, we just can't put the money into this anymore. And it was really sad. And it was just like, man, like, this was like, it truly did in some sense feel like some of the goodness and greatness from the 90s coming back in.